Scientists changed a single word on a survey, and more people showed up to vote in a real election. That one word reveals why so many diets eventually fail and what it actually takes to create lasting change. Before an election, psychologists at Stanford gave people a simple survey. Half received questions about voting. Questions like, how important is it to you to vote? The other half received nearly identical questions, except for one small change. Instead of asking about voting, the survey asked about being a voter. Not something you do, someone you are. One word. That was the entire difference. Then researchers checked who actually showed up at the polls. The people asked about being a voter turned out at significantly higher rates. One noun, one subtle shift in language, and real-world behavior changed. Why? Because when an action becomes part of your identity, instead of something you occasionally do, people will go to remarkable lengths to stay consistent with it. And that is exactly why this matters for your health. Because beneath almost every successful change sits something deeper than motivation, goals, or plans. Their identity. The story you tell yourself about who you are. Most people try to change through outcomes. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to fit into these clothes. I want a different body. Others focus on process. I will follow this plan. I will count calories. I will exercise 5 days a week. Both approaches can work for a while, but underneath both is a deeper layer that often gets ignored. Who do you believe you are? Because if the behavior changes but the identity stays the same, tension begins building immediately. You follow the plan, you stick with it, you push through, but underneath you still see yourself as someone who always struggles, someone who lacks discipline, someone who is just not that kind of person. And that belief behaves like a stretched rubber band. You can pull away from it temporarily, but the entire time it is pulling back, waiting. And the moment your energy drops, life gets stressful, or motivation fades, the old identity snaps you right back. That is why so many people regain weight. They change the behavior, but never change the story attached to it. Imagine two people trying to quit smoking. Someone offers each of them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thanks, I am trying to quit." The second person says, "No thanks, I am not a smoker." Listen carefully, the first person is still a smoker in their own mind. They are simply resisting. Every refusal feels like a battle. The second person is not fighting. Not smoking is not a sacrifice. It is consistent with who they believe they are. One person is pulling against the rubber band. The other person moved the rubber band. Which one is more likely to stay smoke-free a year later? Here is what is fascinating. Identity does not appear first. It gets built from evidence. Your brain watches what you repeatedly do and forms conclusions. You go for a run, then another, or eventually your mind starts noticing a pattern. Maybe I am becoming a runner. Action comes first. Identity follows the evidence, which means every small action becomes a vote for the type of person you are becoming. And that is where many people get stuck. They think they need to feel like a healthy person before acting like one. But it works in reverse. You take the walk before you believe you are a walker. You prepare the healthy meal before you fully identify as someone who eats that way. Then your brain updates the story. I keep doing this. Maybe this is who I am. The belief is not the entry fee. It is the reward that arrives after enough votes have been cast. So here is the practical version. Stop focusing only on outcomes. Decide who you want to become. Not what you want, who you want to be. Maybe it is I am someone who takes care of my body. Then ask one simple question whenever a choice appears. What would that person do? Not what do I feel like doing? Not what do I have the willpower for? Just what would the person I am becoming do here? Then cast another vote. Not perfectly, just consistently. Even your language matters. In one study, people resisting tempting foods used one of two phrases. One group said, "I cannot eat that." The other said, "I do not eat that." Small difference, big result. The people saying "I do not" were far more likely to stick to their goals. Because I cannot feels like restriction, a rule imposed from the outside, something you would escape if you could. I do not is different. It is identity. There is nothing to argue with. It is simply what someone like you does. So here is the truth. You do not have a willpower problem. You have an identity that has not fully caught up with the person you are becoming. Stop trying to overpower your old self-image. You will lose that battle eventually. Cast votes instead. Every action, every choice, every word.